CBS Sports HQ presented by GMC. We are professional grade, and we are wrapping up week 1 in college football today. That's Jacqueline D'Agostino. I'm Chris Hassel. Finishing week 1 the same way we started week 0, though Florida State fans hope it's a little bit different on the field.
You know what, Chris? I got to be careful with what I say about Florida State.
Yes, you do.
Because I've already made Danny Kanell's DK receipts list on X.
He's coming after you.
He is coming after me. He's started a war. I've been called out with photo evidence, the whole 9. It's kind of a scary place to be. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
And your Florida Gators got flat out embarrassed in game 1.
Yes, it was tough to watch. I was in that area of delusion where you think, hey, maybe we can actually win. I'm gonna have to deal with Danny Kanell in a couple of minutes anyways about it, but I'm gonna be careful with what I say. We're just gonna let the video here of FSU week 0 in Dublin just speak for itself, right? The game-winning field goal, FSU, they were double-digit favorites. Georgia Tech coming up with the upset win there. And of course, Florida State, they're trying to get some revenge and rebound for week 1. Week 1 is not over just yet. Florida State, they're trying to avoid an 0-2 start to this season when they take on Boston College. And we saw that matchup last season. It was a little close, and Boston College really pushed FSU to the brink there. FSU, they are double-digit favorites in this matchup. It's Bill O'Brien's first game as a head coach at Boston College. Kick is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern tonight from Tallahassee. And we can't talk about Florida State, of course, without Danny Kanell and our college football insider, Dennis Dodd. FSU, gentlemen, looking to bounce back after losing to Georgia Tech. Danny, I don't want to say must win because we have to be careful when we use that phrasing, right? But how close to a must-win scenario is this for the Noles? I can't believe we're saying this in week 1, but it kind of feels that way.
Oh, I agree with you, Jack. I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, if they lose, you could find out some statistical way to still, contend for the ACC. But this is a program that really does need to validate what they did last season, because running the table in the regular season and winning the ACC was awesome. But what happened against Georgia in the Orange Bowl and what happened against Georgia Tech has a lot of FSU's critics coming and saying, well, I wonder what that was. And can this team, really claim that they're back? And that's a phrase we use all the time with big-time programs like Miami, like Texas, Notre Dame, and Florida State included. So you want to validate that you are one of the powerhouses of college football. In order to do that, you have to come out, and Jacqueline, I'll take it a step further. Not only did you have to win, but I think Florida State needs to win impressively to prove those critics wrong.
Yeah, totally agree. No, I'm looking at the highlights on here from Ireland. Georgia Tech ran it up the middle. They threw jailbreak screens. They dominated physically on the line. I thought I heard several times running into that game that Florida State had the best defensive line in the country. So for Florida State fans and team's sake, I hope they come into this game pissed off. They have not achieved, obviously, they did not play well in Ireland. We can say what we can say about the bowl game. But this is not the Florida State we were sold in the offseason. I'll tell you what, the atmosphere is going to be different. Danny, you know this. They're renovating Doak Campbell's. There's a lot of cranes and machinery around. The capacity is down to 55,000, so it's not going to be what it was before. But if I know FSU fans, they're going to be ready for the home opener. But yeah, a lot to prove here for the Seminoles.
And it feels like DJU has a lot to prove as well in his second start there as a Seminole. DK, I'll start with you again. What do you want to see from DJU? Excuse me. I'm giving you guys a
Danny Kanell University.
Name there. What do you want to see from DJU in his second start to feel a little bit better about him leading this offense for the upcoming season?
So I thought he played well enough to win against Georgia Tech, and I thought he did exactly what the coaching staff asked of him in Ireland. He didn't make the big mistake. So I want to see two things, Jacqueline and Dennis. I want to see DJU stretch the field vertically, but I also want to see the coaching staff call a game plan that puts a little bit more on his shoulders, and similar to what you saw in the fourth quarter, there were 2 fourth-down throws where they had to convert, game was on the line, and DJU came up with a couple big throws. You cannot hide a quarterback all season long. And to me, it felt in the first half, maybe even the first 3 quarters, they were trying to hide DJU. And maybe they were a little bit conservative because the rumblings out of Florida State throughout training camp was the passing game wasn't looking great. Well, maybe he's not a practice player. Maybe he's had his issues in the past. But you can't be a one-dimensional offense and just have your quarterback be a game manager. At some point, you've got to trust him to make throws. I think this is the opportunity to do it because I think Boston College will challenge Florida State the same way Georgia Tech did. They'll bring up 8 and 9 guys in the box, and there will be opportunities on the outside. So it's the 2 things. I want to see DJU get some big plays through the air, but I also wanted to see the coaching staff trust him and get more aggressive with him and try to iron out some of these pass game issues.
You think about what we're talking about here. We're actually mentioning the words game manager for DJU. This is a guy who was number 3 in his class behind Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, who are now in their second years, one of them winning the Heisman, their second years in the NFL. I talked to him in the offseason, and he said very candidly, the career has not gone the way I should. He's got a lot of faith in himself, but I think it's time to really put up that faith and show it to the fans. Need to throw downfield more. I agree. I didn't see much of that in Ireland. Not much with authority. Not much with, this is going to hit. And I think after seeing DJU for 5 years, can we all agree that he's not an impact runner? I thought coming out of school that he was going to be more of an impact runner. That second start against Clemson during COVID, when he put up 440 yards, school record at the time. I think he ran a lot in that game. He's just not a runner, and he's sort of a statue back there. He will run, but I don't think you can see it right here, but he's not a guy who's going to make a difference out of the backfield. So I want to see balls downfield. I agree with Danny. They're going to load the box, pitch the ball downfield, make them defend you deep, and win the game going away. That's the best possible result for Florida State.
All right, let's talk about Boston College because Bill O'Brien is returning to the college ranks. He did 3 seasons as the OC in Bama, went to the NFL. He's back in college here as the head coach of Boston. What are your expectations for him, Danny, as he makes his return to his college debut there?
Oh, I think it was a really solid hire for BC. I mean, this is somebody who was, part of the Patriots, was, part of Penn State. Like, he's done really well with quarterbacks specifically. Even in Houston, I know the relationship might have been a bit strained with Deshaun Watson and some of the players, but the guy knows football. And I mean, Bama fans were so spoiled. They get, oh my gosh, we're not top 5 in passing offense. We must have a coordinator problem. But I think most importantly, you bring sort of a name brand that helps you able to recruit to a place that's really hard to. I think it was one of the big reasons why Thomas Castellanos, their quarterback, did not leave Boston College, because he was sold on Bill O'Brien being able to help him mature and develop as a quarterback that could potentially go to the NFL. So I do think he will struggle this season because of the talent on the roster. We're about to find out tonight, just how different that is. But I think he is the type of coach that could win at a place like BC. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time.
Hard to believe, but it's been 11 years since Tom O'Brien has been a head coach of a college football team. And that was with, of course, Penn State during the, when it was in shambles following the Sandusky scandal back in 2013. Since then, he's been an NFL head coach. He's been a general manager, left ignominiously from Houston, but still that experience counts for something. And I think this is absolutely the best hire Boston College could have made, considering the circumstances, which are frankly, Boston College doesn't put a lot of resources into football, at least compared to other schools, even in its league. You've got Tom O'Brien, a Boston guy, a guy who knows how to recruit, knows the area, knows quarterbacks, and will get the absolute most out of Thomas Castellanos and make him the centerpiece of that offense. So I think this is, I look for great things from Tom O'Brien. If he stays long enough at Boston College, he stayed at Alabama for a hot minute and took a head coaching job. Who can blame him? I
can clear this up. Tom O'Brien was the head coach at Boston College from 97 to 2006. That's why Dennis was saying Tom. It's not like he hasn't seen this before, but Bill O'Brien, the head coach there now.
Yes, we're going to talk about Thomas
on my mind.
Castellanos. We're going to get to the quarterback there at BC, and you both mentioned him, whether he's staying there to work with Bill O'Brien. He's going to be the center of that offense. Chip Patterson, our colleague, called him the X factor for Boston College. We saw what happened in this last contest last season. How does he recreate that type of push, Dennis, in your opinion, against this FSU team?
Just do what he's been doing. Look, he was second last year, rushed for 1,100 yards, Thomas Castellanos. That was second to one Jaden Daniels among quarterback rushing. He's a 2,000, 1,000 guy, or fell just short of that, 2,000 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing last year. And as a dual threat, last year in this game, he threw for 305 yards against a team that would go 13-0. They rallied back from 31-10 up in Boston College and eventually lost 31-29. So Thomas Castellanos is not going to be intimidated in this game, and they will have to stop his running game first because that's what he does best.
All right, Danny, if we look at the numbers, Florida State, they are double-digit favorites. Once again, 16.5-point favorites here. DK, who wins and who covers?
I'll go ahead and take Florida State. I know it's a shocker to some around here, but Florida State with Mike Norvell, after a loss as double-digit favorites, have gone 5-1 against the spread. They lost last week as a double-digit favorite. I think they cover this game. I think they will. Dennis mentioned them coming out ticked off. I think they will be ticked off. Dublin was, I don't want to say fluke because Georgia Tech deserves a ton of credit, but I think this team wants to prove to a lot of people. Plus, you throw in the fact that they almost got beat in Chestnut Hill last year. I think they're well aware of the damage Thomas Castellanos can do on the ground. So I think they'll contain him in the pocket. So I'll say Florida State wins and covers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a backdoor cover here. Maybe late. Maybe they're up by 21 and Boston College gets a field goal or something like that. But I just think they're too good, especially under Bill O'Brien, to get blown out in this game. I do agree that Florida State's going to be a little bit hacked off. They want to play well. They want to show they're in contention for the ACC. But I don't think Boston College is a pushover.
All right, and gentlemen, if we look at the ACC as a whole, of course, FSU and Clemson now looking so great in their season openers, and then we have Miami, of course, that went to Gainesville and just absolutely embarrassed my Florida Gators. I see Danny Kanell with a smirk or a smile that's coming on there. But Danny, if you want to look at your DK top 12, the first one of the season, you have Georgia, of course, at the top, but then Miami coming in at number 2. Is this their performance, I should say, in the Swamp indicative of them winning the ACC and then some? I mean, they're coming in at number 2 on your ranks, Danny.
Yes, I thought it was one of the most impressive wins of the weekend because of where it was at the Swamp. I've been told it's one of the toughest places to play, and I did experience it. But also the fashion, like that was a complete domination. And I think even more specifically, Cam Ward was a player that I thought was the best quarterback in the transfer portal. I thought Florida State should have gone after him, and they did get into a bidding war, but they came up short. And what he showed, the calmness, the coolness, the playmaking ability, I think he's the difference maker. I had Florida State over Miami in the ACC championship game. From what we've seen early, and there's a lot of football left to go, I might swap those two around and put Miami at the top. But I was really impressed with what they did against Florida in the Swamp. And I think it's a sign of more things to come because that kid is special.
Yeah, totally agree. It took parts of 3 years for Mario Cristobal to get his vision, to get his players, to get the NIL line in place. They had to pay upwards of $1 million. Some think that was low. We don't know the exact figure for Cam Ward, but gosh, what an investment. He looks like a Heisman Trophy candidate. The way he throws the ball and the swagger he has on the field, he looks like Patrick Mahomes. I hate to use the PM word, but even on that interception he threw, which was pretty costly to Florida, he was throwing across his body. Where have we seen that before? No-look passes from Patrick Mahomes. 3 touchdown passes, over 300 yards. He was fantastic. And it goes back to the old adage, if you got a quarterback, you got a chance. But Miami has much more than that. They've got a rabid defense. You saw that on Saturday. And the offense is incredible with the receivers they have outside. Restrepo from the outside is going to be another 1,000-yard receiver. I like Miami to win the ACC and obviously to compete for the playoff.
Yeah, and the schedule is pretty favorable for the Canes as well. I heard your slight jab there, Danny, on the Swamp, and I'm just going to move it along because I'm trying to get off of the DK receipts list on X. But Danny, any word on the SEC and how they went out in week 1?
I mean, they want you to go look at all the 60 burgers they put up on the scoreboard versus FCS game to try to deflect what happened on the biggest stages of the weekend. And because we saw some rough performances from them, but they're all going to point to the blowouts and they're going to point to Georgia as the dominant teams. But for teams like Texas A&M, LSU, those were rough performances, games they were supposed to win.
All right, DK and Dennis, we certainly appreciate it getting us ready for FSU in action tonight against Boston College at 7:30 Eastern. Cover 3 podcast, the guys have got you covered all season long. Instant reaction episodes, storylines, they got you covered with everything you need to know this entire college football season. You can download, follow, listen wherever you get your pods, or you can scan that QR code on your screen.